I am excited. Goodell's going to go to the podium and say, let's get this thing started with the first pick in the draft. The Bears are on the clock. And I kind of hope, even though everybody kind of feel that it is going to be Caleb Williams, I hope they take their full 10 minutes so they have an opportunity to take any other calls if people are still trying to get a hold of them for number 9. And so rather than just rushing Caleb to the podium, get his hug, get his jersey, and, let the fun begin, just take your time and see if anybody wants to call and make a early play for number 9.
To your point about the White Sox lack of optimism, Tom, I think it's 180 degrees for this Bears team. Can you remember? Nobody's closer to this team than you for a number of reasons. Can you remember a time where there was more optimism and legitimate and well-deserved optimism for a franchise?
Do you think C.J. Stroud adds to that, T. Waddle? Because it's not a foregone conclusion that because you bring in a rookie quarterback, you have to expect mediocrity from the start,
right,
and through a year or two until he gets his feet wet. Now, when you look at guys like C.J. Stroud that have come in and been on fire immediately and can take a team, it's had a challenge season into the playoffs, especially when they brought in some of the support that Ryan Poles has brought in throughout last season, DJ Moore, Montez Sweat, and then the rest of the free agents that he's brought in this year. I think that, the optimism should be high. And you know what, too, is last week I'm glad that Montez Sweat brought up the fact that finally somebody from the locker room is talking about the importance of beating Green Bay.
Thank you.
Because if you just sit there and hide behind those guys and think everything else is for second, third, and fourth, then you're doing the entire organization a disservice. So I like the fact that Montez has been here for a short period of time, but he's also already notifying the locker room the importance and, beating those guys as quickly as you can.
So are you excited about Caleb Williams?
I am. The more I watch Caleb Williams, the more I like the fact that, he's not pulling the ripcord as soon as he gets pressure from the defensive line, from the offensive line, that he's still looking downfield. He's not trying to cross the line of scrimmage and then turn it into a positive run. I would rather see a guy that's going to try to buy some time behind the line of scrimmage and still looking for an open opportunity downfield, whether if you have a speed receiver where that can get deep, if you have talented tight ends that are always a target in that intermediate zone, or else you have a couple of the other experienced guys like Keenan and DJ that are always an option, even though they're covered because they have the NFL experience. And so I am, and I'm excited, where the optimism is in the development because, people out there want to say, oh, Caleb is a lot like Patrick Mahomes. And then Caleb says about himself that he's a lot like Aaron Rodgers. I think it's a really great comparison to either whoever you're talking about, whether it's the outside evaluators or somebody like Caleb that evaluates himself.
Tom, before we get to discussing what you think they should do at 9, I'm more interested in whether or not, are you confident that they have their problem at center solved?
No. I still think it's an open competition. You don't have a guy that's got bona fide, 5 years of college starts, 4 years of college starts, even 3 years of college starts in the majority of games. And they don't have a bona fide NFL vet that's been behind center for, 4 or 5 years throughout his career that just happened to get on the free agent market and a team paid for him. So I think, outside the right tackle, I think the competition is open on the offensive line. To me, I think Nate Davis can be a good football player, but he's got to show me that he can be a 17-game-a-year good football player. Just like Tevin Jenkins, when he was playing and he had multiple games back-to-back and moving from right guard to left guard, they talked about him having the ability to be one of the better guards in the division, and I hope he sets his aspirations on being one of the better guards in the league. But again, that takes a track record of success to earn that qualification. And then when you talk about Braxton, he's a super intelligent guy. He's really dedicated. Spends a lot of time on the field. But, in the off season, because of the requirements of that position, you got to spend a lot of time in the weight room. and you got to become stronger. You got to become more physical if you're really going to have a running game that's going to complement a young quarterback. And the Bears have done a nice job running the ball, but it's got to be, point of attack runs, and the tackles have a lot to do with the way they work with tight ends, the way they work with offensive guards, their ability to pull to the outside. So, center, I think the competition is open along the offensive line as well.
With that evaluation of the O-line, and I think it's just very honest that, hey, there are some good players, but there are a lot of question marks. Would you like to see them use the 9th pick on an offensive tackle?
You know what, getting to the 9th pick specifically, I would have targeted guys.
Okay.
And if one of those targeted guys were there, then I would be willing to make that pick. If that guy was not there, then I would be willing to create some draft collateral, maybe move down, find a guy that is going to be waiting for his opportunity to pick, and maybe increase your opportunity in the 2nd or 3rd round. And so if Dallas Turner was there, if Verse was there, if Adunze is there, if Joe Alt was there, then I would be willing to, go up to the podium and make the call. But if one of the guys that I really set my sights on was not there, there's a lot of guys in this draft that I think you'll be able to move down and get an opportunity to fill that void. Maybe it is at center. Maybe it is another pass rusher out there. So, I think that you really have to have your sights set on a 9 guy that you want and still field calls throughout picks 2 through 8.
So of those, I think you mentioned 4 of those guys. Give me your order of preference on how you have those guys. Who would excite you most if they were there at 9?
I would go Alt, Turner, and Rome. Those would be my 3 guys. Alt being the first guy. If he's there, I'm picking him. Boom. You got a decade-long bookend tackles. They're going to be, playing at a high level from the first snap of OTAs. And then if you want to help Montez Sweat and really make them thin out their point of pass protection from the opponent, then it's get a guy like Dallas Turner on the outside on the other end, where now you're going to be guaranteed probably 2 one-on-ones per pass blocking configuration. That's going to open up your opportunity for sacks, turnovers, in getting the ball back for the offense.
Can you make the case too, Tom? Like if you're kind of, I know that they'll take the best player available, but if Alt is gone, which is most likely of the 3 that you mentioned,
right?
Can you make the case if you're on the, if Verse and Rome Odunze are on the same level to you, the same guy, same grade, same everything, that the pass rusher, the position is more important than the wide receiver, especially because you have DJ and Keenan Allen. And at that point, you may be the tiebreaker is drafting on need.
Yeah, I agree with you, because to me, if you got the trickle-down effect and you have the 2 quality receivers in DJ and Keenan, then you come back to the line of scrimmage and you have Cole Kmet and now Gerald Everett, and then you move it 1 level back and you have DeAndre Swift, and you have
Khalil Herbert.
Khalil Herbert and Roshan. So you have multiple levels of pass opportunities, but I think when you look at, how many times did they sack Jordan Love last year? And you want to talk to, whoever you consider to be the best team in the division right now, how many sacks did they have against Jordan Love last year? And I think if you don't find a way to make their offense dysfunctional and all the other ones in the league, then that goal of winning the division is going to be even harder.
So, what would you do then with Braxton Jones? I think this was one of the questions that you've sent to us. If they do take a tackle, are you keeping them, and is he your swing tackle then?
Well, I would have to go out there and investigate wealth. If someone out there is really interested in a quality starting left tackle that don't become available very often, then I would go out there and kind of put Braxton Jones for sale. Then Larry Borum would be my flip tackle. And it's no insult at all to Braxton Jones, because what he's done since he's been here is immeasurable in a lot of scouting ways, because you don't take a guy from a small college in the mid rounds and think he's going to walk in here and be a multi-year starter immediately. But if you went there and had an opportunity to draft Alt, I would have to go out there and, at least see if there is any value out there for Braxton, if somebody's interested in it, and recapping the value of him, whether it's a 5th or a 4th round pick. Then if you get a 4th round pick, then you're making money.
Some of your questions, I've not shared a lot of it, but every now and then we'll get a text from you, and I look forward to this.
Talking ball, man.
It's like your question of the day, how do you come up with these? And do you have a question of the day for our listeners or for us today?
And is Sylvie back in your good graces after not responding as promptly as you would like?
He's on the verge, but Danny went to bat for him, so he's back on the list. So I do have a question I was going to send out you guys. So if you look at, and we're going to leave Caleb out of this, but it's going to be Jaden Daniels and a guy like Kyler Murray or Bryce Young. If you're looking at a quarterback, are you okay with tall and lean, or are you okay with, shorter and thicker? And I think that's, kind of what I was looking at in terms of looking at all the templates of the quarterback position coming out in the draft, and what would you be okay with?
Well, the last combo I'd be good with, Tom, is short and lean, and that's Bryce Young, and that's one of the reasons why, as talented as he is, I would have stayed so far away from him. He may prove me wrong and be the best quarterback in the league soon, but I would still take the guy. There's a limit though, Tom, because you can't give me 5'9" and stout, because I'll take the taller, lean guy.
Yeah.
If you're saying 6 foot tall and 220 pounds, which is kind of what Caleb Williams is, right? 6 foot, 6.5, maybe.
6'1" and 7/8", 217 pounds. But
yeah.
I mean, you got a Kyler Murray who's thick, or else you got Jaden Daniels, who they say is slight, tall and thin. What would be your preference if you are the GM of the 34th team?
I think I would take tall and thin.
Me too. I want him to see over the line, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like Brady is tall and thin, but he doesn't run like Jaden Daniels. Yeah. That's just the difference.
Jaden Daniels has got a narrow set of shoulders, but I think he could actually, if they get him in the right situation, Tom, I mean, they get him in the weight room and ask him, you don't want to ruin a throwing motion by bulking up, but I think some quarterbacks can add some weight and provide some protection. I'd be scared to death, especially with his desire to tuck and run, that at the next level, he'll get hurt quickly.
Well, it brings RG3 to mind, because he's a guy that hit his leg on the belly of, I think, Haloti Ngata, and he, blew his knee out like that. And so it wasn't a pounding hit that presses your shoulders into the ground. It's just your body swinging along and hitting an incredibly big man. So, that was just one of my questions that I was thinking about as I was looking at all the quarterback candidates that are coming in.
It's really interesting, too, because, I know that everyone loves Jaden Daniels, and his play is spectacular, but his frame, Tom, would bother me. And not just that, but, Caleb Williams scrambles to throw.
Yeah.
There are times where he will tuck and run, but I never feel when I'm watching his film that he is being careless or reckless. Not just taking care of the football, but his body. The kid that they drafted in Indianapolis last year didn't last more than 5 or 6 games, and he's 6'4" and 230 pounds. But he plays the game reckless, and if he doesn't change how he plays, as talented as he may be, he's going to constantly find himself hurt. And that, to me, is the quality that you have to be able to identify with these guys as they're coming from the collegiate game. Does he put his body in harm's way? Is he reckless? That's one of the things that leaves me more comfortable with Caleb Williams, because I think he does a better job protecting himself.
One thing that does make me nervous about college quarterbacks is the college quarterbacks that are just looking at pictures from the sideline.
Yes.
And now you're not really learning everything about the offense, and you're not learning extensive terminology. in how it fits to every single thing that you're saying in terms of knowing the vulnerabilities of the protection you're calling in the huddle, in what everybody's job is and how it fits. Now everybody's looking towards the sideline. So it takes you a while to become comfortable in being in a huddle and using the terminology that they have in the modern day NFL that's so exhausting that it takes you a long time to master terminology. And all these programs that have these kids that come out and just looking at signs from the sideline, that has development concerns for me as well.